Hi, and welcome to the Restorative Wellness Clinicians Corner, a video series exclusively for functional health professionals, where we interview the top experts in the latest research, products, tools, and best practices for getting your clients exceptional results. Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the RWS Clinicians Corner. Today, we're going to mix it up a little bit, and I am going to give you a download of what's been on my mind of late. So I plan on popping in to the podcast with these little solo casts every so often, and I would love to hear from you. Let us know if you like this type of content and if you have topics that you want me to comment on. The best way to do this is to email us at info@restaurativewellnesssolutions.com, or you can always just pop a comment into whatever podcast channel you are listening to this on. Today, I want to talk about a trend that I'm seeing increase as functional medicine and functional health strategies grow in popularity. As functional approaches become more mainstream and more accepted, it's really probably inevitable that we start to see people hopping on the bandwagon and doing a more diluted, watered down version of things. And the problem is that people don't get the same kind of really outstanding results as we do when we practice with a much more thorough, truly functional inside out approach. And so what happens is people leave feeling really discouraged, and ultimately it reflects poorly on the field overall. So I want to unpack this a little bit, what's going on, and I think some key questions that all of us need to be asking ourselves to make sure that we're not slipping into practicing what I would call green allopathy. So let's use to, really kind of unpack what is green allopathy and what is a truly functional approach. I want to use the example of something that we see all the time in practice, just to understand how these approaches are different. So let's use the example of an H. pylori infection. So you're clinicians, I'm assuming you're familiar with Helicobacter pylori or H. pylori, but just to make 100% sure that we're all on the same page, H. pylori is a bacteria that lives in the stomach, and then when it proliferates, it damages the parietal cells that secrete hydrochloric acid. It can be part of the underlying cause of gastritis, stomach ulcers, and even some stomach cancer. So it's significant, something we want to pay attention to for sure. Now, when we think about the different ways of approaching this, let's start with the conventional medical approach. So the conventional medical approach is to prescribe antibiotics to kill the H. pylori and use either some form of proton pump inhibitor or PPI or antacid to reduce the symptoms. Now, that's the conventional medical model. The green allopathic model is a similar approach, but with kind of natural remedies. So rather than use a prescription antibiotic, they might use herbal antimicrobials, and instead of using PPIs, they might use upper GI healing agents that are more natural and more soothing, as opposed to suppressing the production of hydrochloric acid. Now, there's nothing wrong with this strategy, and it is a core part of any H. pylori protocol. The problem is if it ends there and we don't do any deeper digging. So the true functional approach is to, yes, address this thing that's in front of us, in this case, the H. pylori infection, but to also ask two very important additional questions. The first question being, what created the environment for this H. pylori to proliferate in the beginning, right? In other words, what came before? What conditions created this situation? If we don't address the conditions that allowed for the H. pylori to proliferate, then the chances of it coming back are really high. And if you look at recurrence rates for H. pylori, they are really annoyingly high. Anyone who has worked with people with H. pylori will know this. So we have to be asking this first all-important question, which is, what allowed this? What came before? What allowed the H. pylori to proliferate? The second question we want to be asking are, what are the downstream results that result from this overgrowth? So in other words, what came after? What came as a result of this situation? Has it, for example, led to food sensitivities developing? Or maybe there's some compromised gut barrier integrity, or maybe we have a situation where maldigested proteins, because the H. pylori attacks the parietal cells that secrete hydrochloric acid. So often we're in a hypochlorhydric situation, which means we have impaired protein digestion. So maybe we have these maldigested proteins that are making their way into the intestines and then feeding the overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria that feed on maldigested proteins. And this can all lead to an imbalanced microbiome. A lot of different things that can be downstream results of an H. pylori overgrowth. So we have to be asking this question, what came after? If all that we're dealing with is this thing in front of us, in this example, the H. pylori, and if we're not asking what came before and what came after, then we are missing a huge and important piece of the puzzle. And ultimately, we're not practicing a truly functional approach. We're essentially falling into and slipping into this green allopathic model. Now, do we want to address this thing in front of us that's causing the symptoms and making our client feel miserable? Absolutely. But we don't want to stop there. We might not be able to address all of these things at once, but we do need to keep them all in mind and address them at some point, because if you don't, you might as well go the conventional medical approach and use prescription antibiotics because they're cheaper and it goes a lot faster than the herbals, right? So what's the takeaway here? Well, if you're a practitioner, make sure you're not slipping into the very easy to fall into trap of only addressing that thing in front of you. Always ask, what conditions allowed us to get to this place where the symptom presentation is manifest? And then ask that second additional question, which is, what are the downstream effects of this situation? Now, I'll be the first to admit, it's a lot harder to be this comprehensive, but this is where you get truly knock it out of the park results. This is the philosophy that is core to everything we teach here at Restorative Wellness Solutions, and it is essential for all of us in the functional space to keep front and center. If you're not a practitioner, but you're wanting to work with somebody in the functional space, these questions are important for you to be asking too. You want to make sure that they're taking this truly comprehensive approach. Ultimately, it's just what's required in order to achieve that full healing and full level of thriving that I know you're looking for. So, everybody, remember, the power of functional health lies in asking the right questions, not just addressing the symptoms. Keep digging, stay curious, and let's transform lives one client at a time. The Clinicians Corner podcast is sponsored by Restorative Wellness Solutions, the premier clinical training program for health practitioners who want to learn how to finally get to the root source of their clients' health concerns and help them reverse complex health challenges and chronic illness. You can't afford to keep guessing. Your clients can't afford it either. Today's clients are sicker than ever before. Their health histories are more complex than ever before. And you simply can't deliver the results they crave or build the practice you desire without the right clinical skills. Enter Restorative Wellness Solutions foundational course, Mastering the Art and Science of Gastrointestinal Healing. Our clinically proven, systematic approach to restoring balance within the body that has helped over 1,000 practitioners transform their clients' lives, grow their business, and change the way health is delivered. In less than 12 weeks, you'll develop the clinical skills and confidence you need to help your clients feel better, faster. Learn how to work with advanced lab testing to identify food sensitivities and imbalances within the gut. Craft custom targeted protocols that truly resolve your clients' gut issues, and work safely and effectively with supplements to deliver consistently life-changing results. Visit masterguthealing.com to apply today.